Welcome back to ICRS 2014 in Atlanta. I'm here with Mr. Gary Wilkerson. How you doing?
Hey, how you doing?
And yes, he is related to David Wilkerson. It's Dave Wilkerson's son, Gary.
Yeah, that's absolutely right.
And if you're like me, a World Challenge donator, I always donate every year, every month, every time I can. Wow. And I tell you what, you would have recognized him because his pictures on the newsletters and his pictures on the. It's a lot of writing.
Yeah,
I mean that's just not a page.
No, it comes out every 3 weeks.
Yes,
and it seems like you just get one finished, and my secretary's saying it's time to get the next one up and running.
And your dad used to do the pulpit series.
Yeah, he was a prolific writer.
Oh, I know.
He wrote faster than I can read. So for me, it takes a little longer to put a newsletter together.
Yeah. I mean, he was constantly. I mean, it's like you could tell this was really some strong stuff, and your stuff's pretty good.
Thank you.
Was it a little difficult for you to adjust to? I mean, looks like your dad was giving you to write the newsletter and stuff early on.
Yeah, about 6 years ago, he started having me do one maybe every 3 to 4 months. I would do one, and then it kind of got a little quicker and quicker. And then when he passed away about 3 years ago, I was already writing them pretty regularly. And now we still have. He wrote so much that we were actually able to still put new material on both our World Challenge website and on the newsletter that goes out. Okay. So new sermons of his that have never been published before.
Oh, really?
So some of the stuff you get is stuff that we are kind of in his archives.
Yeah. I used to keep. And I think I still have it. But when I started a church way back when I was a lot younger. And your dad's every 3 weeks I could count on something, or every few weeks, and I would take little bits of that and just teach it, because it was oh my gosh, it was your dad would have a long. It was pretty good study. I mean, you could not teach that sermon on your own if you weren't the one preaching it. It would take a few services to do it, but that what your dad had it helped me learn how to write, to be to be a preacher. It helped me understand how study how he wrote it, and I tell you what, I'm a product of that. I'm a product of reading that and putting that stuff together.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I understand that completely. There's a lot of stuff that I'm doing in ministry today that he mentored me in.
Oh, absolutely.
With that, he allowed me to. And encouraged me to have my own personality, to do things the way that God set up my DNA. But at the same time, there's certain standards and principles of ministry that can be taught and caught by us, and I was thrilled to have a part of that. Yeah.
So you're heading the ministry.
Yeah. Head up. He started years ago a drug program called Teen Challenge. Okay. And then after Teen Challenge was founded, the ministry began to expand beyond Teen Challenge as a drug rehabilitation program, and after that we began to work with like orphan care around. Developing countries and feeding programs. So the ministry expanded, plus the written material, the sermon materials, and the website. Yeah. So as it expanded, we changed the name. Well, we kept the name Teen Challenge for the drug program, and then expanded World Challenge, and that's been in existence almost 40 years now. And I've been working with them for about 30 years, and became president. And
you haven't missed a beat. I mean, you've been able to keep it running.
Yeah.
And that's amazing. We're talking about just before the show. I was just talking to Brother Gary about that when a face of an organization changes, and it was something sudden, it was something unexpected.
That's right.
And it just you go either way. You could either gain or you start losing, just traction. But you seem to have. I've kept up with you. Yeah. You seem to have kept going.
Well, like for people like yourself, man, I'm so grateful that you were able to. Because I was wondering when there was a transition, because so many people are familiar with my father's ministry, if it was a ministry that was based just on his name and personality. But we've seen so many of the donors and so many people that are getting blessed by the ministry see it as a ministry, because it continues his same heart, a heart for the poor, a heart for the addicted, for the downcast, the down and out, and to be able to come in and spiritually and economically and socially help people lift their hands up a little bit.
Oh, absolutely. Tell some of the things that World Challenge is doing today.
We work in primarily 4 different aspects of ministry. One is called Please Pass the Bread. It's a feeding program for children. We're in about 12 nations there, feeding thousands and thousands of kids all over the world, Philippines and Kenya, all around the world. Another aspect of our ministry is Frontier Ministries, where we go in and help plant churches and among unreached people groups. And a third aspect of it is like our writing sermon materials on the World Challenge website. And last but not least is what we call community development. And community development is an opportunity to look at some of the systemic problems of poverty in developing countries. So instead of coming in and doing a feeding program, we might look at why is there malnutrition, why is there lack of food in this community, and help them build the food resources necessary to stand on their own 2 feet. And that builds such a great sense of their own dignity, their own self-worth.
That's important because there's so many countries that just, they depend on it. They depend on a person coming in and taking care of them because they know that there's good Americans or good people out there that's going to be a blessing to them. And it's nothing wrong, but if they continue to depend on it, they just drain. Every time I go to India, and I don't mind because I know the places I'm going are very hurt, very hit, that I have to feed 300 people. If I invite 1,000 people, I have to feed 1,000 people. So my budget goes up. So I have to make sure. One story that we had out there is we had 300 people. And we budgeted for that, but 500 people showed up. And in India, it's an insult if you don't offer them tea and a snack, and if you turn them away, you're not going to feed them. And these people, to me, it seemed it was more important that they're at the conference and feeding them than send them away. And I'm like, Lord, what do you want me to do? And I just went over there, got inspired by the Holy Ghost. I went and I grabbed the cook. I said, you keep cooking. No matter what you do, don't look what's in the pot. You just keep cooking it. Good. And I went to the servers. I go, you keep serving. No, look at the pot. Just put the food on the plate and keep going. And do you know, at the end of the conference, because we had no more money, no more budget for anything else, God put an increase. It is not those big numbers, 300 or 500, but we were able to feed all the people for those 3 days, and food, snacks, everything. And even the cows, because we threw the food away, that out there, even the cows were able to reap in the blessing. So
sounds like it's right out of the gospel.
And so those kind of things happen out there, but you got to train them. And I'm glad that you have a program like that. Now you're doing something new right now. New book's coming out.
Yeah.
Tell us about the title.
It's called David Wilkerson, The Cross, the Switchblade, and the Man Who Believed. And I really wanted to get that last part of that title in there, The Man Who Believed, because that is really similar to what we were talking about earlier with your book, The Faith Igniter. This book, I hope it does the same thing. It helps ignite people's faith, help them to really believe.
That man believed.
Yeah, he believed.
I mean, I would read the stories in the book itself, but then just at a time where he just believed God could do anything. And that, I mean, I know you know that personally, but I mean, but just to read it and understand it, those stories inspired me.
That's why I wanted to write the book, was being around him, anybody that made any contact with him, 10 minutes in his office in New York City, or when he was traveling on the road, if he met a pastor in a conference, 10, 15 minutes in his presence, and you would come away with this contagious sense of faith. He exuded the confidence that God is able to do anything, and particularly in areas, he loved to work in areas where people thought it was impossible. So when he first started his work in New York City with gang members, people were saying there's no hope for somebody that violent. Or when he started Teen Challenge, they were saying there's no cure for a drug addict. And he just said, well, if the world says that's impossible, that's exactly where I want to be. And so that contagious faith. I was hoping that if we put this book together, we could kind of capture a sense of that faith-building confidence that you can have by being around the man. I'm hoping the book gives people, through the stories it tells, kind of some of the behind-the-scene things. Not only the positive ones, but some of the struggles you went through as well.
Oh, that's most important as well, because a lot of people don't realize, even when you're doing a small ministry or a big ministry, there is a price you got to pay. There's a price that you pay, and you paid in sweat, but you also paid in emotions. You paid, and sometimes you have to wait for something, and you miss something. You can get very depressed easily, and if you don't keep yourself motivated in faith and in the gospel. So tell some of the stories that you're going to share with us in this book.
Well, it starts off in his childhood, how he grew up in what he described himself as a legalistic home, and they had, for instance, sporting events would be considered sinful, a washing machine in the home would be sinful, and so there were a lot of rules, regulations. It was kind of a law-based faith. And so all his life he struggled with that, and so the book actually starts with that and then ends with that, because even when he was in his late 70s and early 80s, he would still, if he wasn't careful, that old school, that old wind of the law of you're only righteous by what you're performing before God. You're not saved. You're saved by grace, but then you have to maintain your self by your own works and your own effort. And so this sense inside of him that's like, have I really pleased God? Have I done enough? The Lord took that away from him to where he really sensed, man, I'm a son of God, I'm a child. And out of that then exuded a new confidence, not just for the God who can do miracles on the streets and in third world countries, but the God who can take care of me, the God who loves me. And
that's important, because a lot of us ministers are out there, we work countless hours, and we're out there praying, and we're seeing people healed, or we're seeing emotions delivered. But then who's taking care of us? And are we taking the time to get in front of God and lift whatever burden that's hurting us? And that's important. That's important.
It really is important.
Was it hard for you to put this book together, because you had to go back and revisit some of your childhood and some of the things of your dad, and you had to remember some stuff, and I know all that had to bring up some emotions.
It does, especially the way things ended kind of quickly. We didn't know. It wasn't like
I couldn't believe it when I seen it on the internet. I mean, the internet had it first, and I just could not believe it.
Yeah, so in some ways I wasn't prepared for it, even though.
Where were you when you got the news?
I'm pastoring a church in Colorado Springs, so I was there in Colorado.
What's your church name?
It's called the Springs Church.
Okay.
And we have a great young church that was about 5 years old, but I was there, and he got a message from my brother-in-law that the car accident had happened, and we just know that. But at his funeral, it was such a joy to do the eulogy and preach the sermon there, and be able to say
that had to be difficult. Though.
It was difficult, but I was
satisfied in your spirit.
It was satisfied.
That's the best word.
It was a great word. There was a joy that was that this man lived his life well. I mean, no regrets, no going back and saying I should have done that or should have done that. I mean, if he had one regret, it was that he let that sense of struggling to be accepted by God. That was his only, his last days. He said, the only thing I would want to do differently is to go back and say, to know that the sweetness of the grace of God permeates my whole life.
Oh, absolutely.
But this is just a joy knowing that. I preached to this funeral and said, just like King David, it was a man who served God's purpose in his generation, then he died. He's like, here's my call, here's my vision, and now I'm done, so time to take me home.
But your dad impacted millions, and I'm sure that this story that you put together as well is going to impact millions as well.
That's what I'd hope for. A lot of the stories that when people walk up to me and say, hey, your dad, bless me, it's usually not just like a light touch, like, oh, great book, I read it when I was in school. But it's usually more like I read it and then I got called into the ministry, or I was backslid and I read Cross and Switchblade and I gave my life to Jesus, or my son is a graduate of Teen Challenge, meeting heads of ministries.
Yeah, that's good.
So it's real life change stuff. It's not just that light touch, and that's that contagious kind of faith that I believe every Christian should have that kind of influence. We're not meant to be just casual Christians. We're not meant to just be pew warmers and sit there on Sundays and listen to sermons. We're meant to engage, to get in the game, not be on the sidelines. And that's why, again, that's why one of the reasons I wanted to write the book, to be able to help stir people's hearts up.
Absolutely, and when they finish reading the book and they actually have had some time to think on it, what do you want to happen in their life?
Yeah, I want them to walk away and say that there's an object out there that is opposed to the glory of God. There's something, it could be in my community, and this is anything, whether you live in New York City or a farming village in Kansas, there's always something around us, a need that's present, that the glory of God could be shown through meeting that need. It could be working with junior high kids in your church. It could be helping in the nursery. It could be going on a missions trip. It could be using your gifts for writing, like you do, and many other things that you do as well. And I think every Christian has a calling on their life.
Oh, absolutely.
And they're meant to do that. So I hope they read this book and say, yes, I believe, and yes, I'm going to go for that thing that seems impossible to me. To do. Who am I to do that? And so my dad's life started as a pastor of a really small country church out in Pennsylvania, and he got this call of God, like, who is he to go into New York City and slay these giants of gangs and drugs? And yet, because of not any self-confidence he had, but a confidence in the Lord. And I'd love for people to get that.
And one thing I remember about your dad is what you shared just a few minutes ago as well, and that he looked at the challenges.
He did.
I almost sensed like a smile on his heart.
That's a good way to
like,
say it.
Okay, I'm going after this because I want to go to the hardest and most difficult place.
You got it.
And I'm going to see God move because I believe that he can move.
Yeah.
We need more people like that.
Oh, absolutely.
Imagine a generation of people just like that. And there are some out there. There's a lot out there because they've been influenced by your father, been influenced by you as well, because you're carrying on the torch and you're pushing it forward, and God's going to honor that.
Yeah,
and seeing that. So when's the book going to be released?
It'll be released in September.
September?
September, yep. It'll be available at our website, worldchallenge.org, or through Christian local bookstores. Zondervan is the company that's publishing it, so they're doing a great job of helping promote it and get the word out, because we'd like to get as many people.
Oh, absolutely, because today there's a big difference in getting the books way out there. I mean, this book could have more impact than anything.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at it. I mean, your dad's life can all be thrown into this book as far as influence and change it a whole new generations instantly with downloads, with email, which is sending the book out. So
they're probably the most recent growing aspect of our ministry is our online type stuff. So there's a daily devotional that goes out through World Challenge, and I think it's close to 100,000 people now are getting right on their iPhones or whatever.
That's important. That's why, I mean, I've had opportunities to go on regular television, and I've had opportunities to go on regular radio, but I've been enjoying living on the internet because it is where everything's at. Everything's merging that way. And the thing is, where everyone was concentrating to get the funds to go and pay for their TV spots and stuff, that's thousands of dollars. I took that same money and I invested into an IPTV system.
Oh, okay.
And now that pays back, and we have 160 ministries broadcasting with us. I only charge them $50. That's all I charge them. They can do video, radio. The main reason is I just want the gospel preached.
That's good news.
There's cost, and that's why there's a little bit of cost I put in there for them to pay. But if you look at it, those are my monthly donors. If you look at it that way, it's just a different way of getting monthly donors.
Yeah.
But I'm providing a service for
I'm glad you did it.
And it changes things, because even I had I believe Nolan, I forget his last name, but he's with the Salvation Army.
Okay.
And they have savntv.com. They said that they did a study, and that the street corner is no longer the street corner; it's online. That is your street corner.
I never thought of
That
that.
is the people that those people are online searching.
Yeah.
They're searching to help their addiction, to feed their addiction, or for help for their addiction. And that is where they focus. They took everything that they had on the streets and put it inside cyber world. And now it's like everybody, they have a huge following, and any videos you put online, anything, people are looking to get touched.
Yeah.
And we have a counseling channel with June Hunt. She's just here. She's part of that. And man, we get a lot of people on there looking for depression, looking for bullying and stuff. These are people that don't want to go out and talk to someone, but are comfortable with today's media and the way that we get it. And it's a blessing. So I know this book's going to help them, and I encourage you to keep pushing the internet, because it's gonna change.
Yeah,
it's changing things.
It really is. Just something simple as the little thing that goes out on Twitter.
Oh, absolutely.
And you can sort of push a button. And
Oh, absolutely. That's why there's no other time, and I tell everybody this, there's no other time. They said in the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, the 90s that Jesus would return. There's no other time that he could have till now, because now in a twinkle of an eye, everybody in the world could see him. Everybody's going to Facebook him. Someone's going to take a selfie with Jesus. And, it's just, when that happens, everyone will see it. No other time ever in history. In history,
So
it could never have been done till today. Now we can say it can be done.
That'll hashtag, right? That's hashtag Jesus is coming.
Yeah. Anyway, tell them the title one more time.
David Wilkerson, the man who believed, Cross and Switchblade, and the man who believed.
Amen. And then they can get this in September at
yeah.
worldchallenge.com.
Yep. Love for you to get it for us.
Amen. God bless you. Thank you so much, Gary.
Thank you. Enjoyed being with you. God
All
bless
right.
you too.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. Have a great day.
And we'll be back with another great guest.